I'm a guy that's 24. Each day I build some more. I like the sequels. I'm Rich Boy J. Hello boyos, Rich Boy J here back in with another video, and today we are finally going to talk about these newly revealed Rise of Skywalker sets. I know at this point this video is a bit overdue. There are already reviews of these sets online, but until 2 days ago I couldn't even talk about these sets, so I figured why not actually give my patented Rich Boy J in-depth analysis on these sets that are going to be released. So these sets are coming out next Friday, on Force Friday, that's October 4th. This is going to be the last Force Friday we have for a while, I'm imagining, considering we're not getting another film until 2022. So I want to make this Force Friday feel special. I want to make sure I'm in there in the store getting the sets on day one. So most likely I will do some sort of stream on next Friday. That way you can see me at least build some of the sets, but my schedule is really what's going to determine ultimately how that stream goes. But without further ado, let's jump right into the sets. Starting from smallest to largest, the first one we're going to look at is set number 75246, the Death Star cannon. It's going to retail for $19.99 US. Now, in terms of the build itself, it's pretty straightforward and simple. Like, there aren't really any groundbreaking techniques. I mean, it's a pretty small set in general. But I'm liking this kind of theme they're going along with giving us Death Star vignettes. The Death Star sequence in A New Hope is probably my favorite sequence of all of Star Wars. So for us to be getting a multitude of sets that kind of can all be eventually combined in somewhere, at least sat next to each other to give us a more holistic view of the interior of the Death Star, I'm all for it. This set comes with two minifigures. You're going to get an Obi-Wan Kenobi figure as well as a Death Star Gunner figure. I'm really happy to get another Death Star Gunner figure. I think that helmet just looks awesome, especially in Lego, so that's a good thing. But this is the first time in a long time we've gotten Obi-Wan, but there are actually a few things to get excited with on this Obi-Wan figure. I feel like Old Benton is the figure that we've just gotten like a lot recently, but this one is unique in quite a few ways. The first thing being that he has a new hood mold. The new hood actually, I think, looks really good. It makes a lot more sense than the old one, specifically in how you don't have that weird connection where the neck would be. That never really made sense in the context of the hood, so I'm glad that that's actually not a thing anymore. This one just looks more realistic and looks like it makes a lot more sense. The other thing about this figure is it looks like they're going away from his classic robe being printed on the actual minifig. Instead, they're going back with the cape design, which, I mean, I think maybe this is a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, because when you had his robe, it was kind of annoying that like the brown was kind of just printed on the front of his figure, but the sides weren't brown. So I can see the appeal to doing something like that. I can understand the appeal to doing a minifigure like this. Back when they were actually just giving him a printed robe, you would end up in a situation where, like, for his torso, the actual like tan cloths under the robe would be discolored because the base of the torso was brown, and then on the legs you would end up with no leg or side leg printing, so you would just only have the robe going down the front of it, but then the sides and back of his legs would still be tan. So in terms of just like the aesthetics, this one, it just makes a little bit more sense of a figure, but I'm still not entirely sure if I'm sold on using capes as robes in Star Wars. I know back in the day it was, you know, a classic thing, and it's I guess a little bit nostalgic, but I think ideally you would still print the robe, but they would just do side leg and back leg printing to have the robe wrap around the entire figure. I know that's something they've never done, so I don't expect them to do something like that, but I think like in an ideal world I would prefer that to having the cape. But nonetheless, I do actually really like this figure, and it's nice to get some sort of update to Old Ben. Next up is the first Rise of Skywalker set in this video. It's set number 75248, the Resistance A-Wing Starfighter. Before I get into the actual set, I do want to mention, I think the box art for these Rise of Skywalker sets looks incredible. They're still going with that like brick pattern, the just random kind of greebling, I guess you'd describe it as, but now it's in black for the just standard sets outside of the UCS sets, and also you have the Lego Kylo Ren over to the top right side of the corner, which I thought was actually kind of an interesting thing. Before, like, they would just kind of keep the Lego box art consistent with the other toy box art, which would have an actual Kylo Ren in that same pose, but it is kind of cool that they decided to make the Lego box art a little bit special in that regard, and to actually put a Lego Kylo Ren at the top right corner. So all in all, this box art to me is just very aesthetically pleasing. In regard to the actual set, it has 269 pieces. It's going to retail for, I think, $29.99, so it's a bit smaller and cheaper than previous A-Wings we've gotten. I think the last A-Wing was maybe like 40 or 50 bucks, but we're finally getting a proper Resistance A-Wing, which I think is pretty exciting. I personally would have preferred to have gotten Tally's A-Wing, but she's dead now, so why not give Snap Wexley his own A-Wing? The most exciting thing for me about this set has to be the Lieutenant Connix figure. If you don't remember, she is basically Billy Lord, also known as Carrie Fisher's daughter, and she plays Kato Connix in Star Wars. So it looks like she has a new hairstyle for this new film, which, I mean, it looks good. It's a good looking hairpiece in a new color. The unfortunate thing is she had a different hairstyle in episodes 7 and 8, so we still don't have that version of her character, but nonetheless, it is still very exciting to have this character in some capacity in LEGO. In terms of the actual build, I feel it's keeping a lot of the same design features of the A-Wings we've gotten previously. Like, it's still using those really thin flapped wing pieces. The wings are actually angled, and I'm glad they're continuing to do that. This one looks a little bit more narrow than the Rebel A-Wings that we've gotten so far, and it ultimately, I guess, looks a little bit more sleek, which makes sense. The Resistance A-Wing is a lot more thin. It's not as like bulky, I feel, as the Rebel A-Wing, so the design is consistent in that regard, and all in all, for a $29 set, I think the Resistance A-Wing actually looks pretty good. I can see a lot of people getting this set and, you know, like swapping it out with other colors to give us various A-Wings from the Resistance fleet, and I think that's an exciting thing. You know, when there's a set in a wave that you can be motivated to get multiples of, I think that's always a good way to go for LEGO. Last thing to talk about is the Snap Wexley figure. It looks like the same Snap that we've gotten before, at least the torso and helmet is. I believe the face print is slightly different, which I guess is a cool thing, and also begs the question, why can Snap get two different faces, but Rey still only has one? Next up, we have set number 75250, the Pasaana Speeder Chase. It's gonna retail for $39.99, and this is one of the sets I'm definitely more excited to get. For one, Rey is in it, and it's the new version of Rey, and it's nice that she's in a relatively small set compared to the other sets in the wave. Like, usually whenever they're doing, you know, new movie waves like this, it seems like the main character gets put in the most expensive set or somewhere up there for the most expensive sets. Fortunately, that wasn't the case with The Force Awakens. Rey was actually in the smallest set, but I feel that was kind of like a diversion in marketing. Like, at that point, we weren't really aware that Rey was supposed to be the main character. The marketing would have led us to believe that Finn was supposed to be the main character, and he was in the most expensive set. So it is cool to get the Episode 9 version of Rey in a relatively inexpensive set. That'll be really nice, just, I think, for kids who just want to have the main character. She's there in a relatively small set, and what I think is actually a really cool looking set. I think that tread speeder that the First Order guy is on looks awesome. It's the first time we've seen anything like that in Star Wars. It's been a while since we've gotten even a set with treads on it. Probably would have to go back to one of the Corporate Alliance droid tanks before we got to that. So you probably would have to go back to the Corporate Alliance droid tank to see the last time we've gotten a Star Wars set with treads in it. So I actually like the design of the vehicle quite a bit, and it is cool to get it in this set. The Jet Trooper, I have to say, looks pretty freaking sweet. It's going to be cool seeing how those guys are incorporated into this action sequence. Like, the idea of our main characters, you know, riding around on this desert skiff with some rocket pack boys chasing after them, that sounds like actually quite a bit of fun. I think the desert skiff design also looks really interesting in itself. I mean, it's red. It's kind of a color that pops, especially on the tan and desert background. And there's, of course, stickers. I mean, that's come to be expected, but I don't know. I like the way the weathering on the front of it looks, and that's achieved with those stickers. I also appreciate the little scenery build that's kind of towards the background of the set. It's nice when we get, you know, vehicle sets that come with extra things to kind of make the environment a little bit more interesting. That's one of the things that Star Wars traditionally has lacked, right? Like environment sets. Star Wars has really been dominated with vehicle sets. So it's cool when even in those vehicle sets, when they include things that just make the environment a little bit more interesting. Here's a closer look at the figures that are going to be included in this set. I think this set actually has a really good array of figures. The Stormtrooper and the Jet Trooper are both new. The helmet on the Stormtrooper is the same that we've gotten before, but the torso and I believe the leg printing as well is unique to that figure. Same thing with the Jet Trooper. He's rocking really like the Flame Trooper styled armor, but it just has some unique prints on it and some weird, looks like words on it as well. BB-8, I believe, is the same that we've gotten up to this point, but Rey is of course new to this set. I actually really like the design of her torso and leg pieces. Really the only gripe I have about that Rey figure is, once again, there is no semblance of like her sleeves, and that really sucks, especially for this figure. The fact that they decided to make her arms completely, flesh tone, it gives the impression she just has nothing on her arms, and if you look at the film, she clearly does. So I don't know like what it's gonna take for the main character of this big Star Wars trilogy to get, I don't know, just the detail she deserves, right? But ignoring that, I think the figure actually looks quite good. And here's just a look at the back of the box. Next up, we're going to take a look at set number 75254, the AT-ST Raider, and it is yet another LEGO AT-ST. So I'm not going to just straight up call this a remake, because it's really not. It is a completely different paint scheme than any AT-ST we've seen before in LEGO. This is the thing for me that just makes the set uninteresting, is the fact that I don't really like LEGO's AT-ST design to begin with. You can see that this design is mostly what we got with the Imperial AT-ST from Rogue One. And other than the color scheme, they haven't really taken any drastic departures from the overall design on this vehicle. And from reviews that I've seen, it still only has one seat. I've really talked about this ad nauseum at this point, and I don't know what it's gonna take for LEGO to actually put 2 seats in the AT-ST, but it's getting ridiculous at this point. Like, I really don't understand why that isn't just a standard, right? Like, I've seen people mod the AT-ST from Rogue One and give it 2 seats. It's clearly possible, and I think it would add just so much more playability and accuracy to the set. Like, there's 2 windows on the set, and the windows are supposed to be for the 2 figures that sit inside of it. But when you have one figure on the inside that sits in the middle, those windows are useless. And I know that's a total like nitpicky thing, but I say it just to really nail home the idea that LEGO should be putting 2 seats in these things. All right, enough is enough. Please just put 2 seats in it. Please just do it. But outside of that, the one thing I will say that's actually really good about this set are the figures. The figures look incredible. We're gonna get the main character from the Mandalorian, who at this point, we just kind of know him as the Mandalorian. We're getting Cara Dune, which is also a really nice looking minifig, and 2 Klatooinian Raiders, and those are both just 2 awesome looking figures. I love the aesthetic of the minifigures so far. Like, even if you weren't directly trying to get these just to get figures from the Mandalorian, I think all these figures just really have a good Star Wars aesthetic, and I think they just make decent looking background characters, honestly. And it's always nice when we can get figures like that have torsos and leg pieces that are versatile, ones that you would want to use in other mocks or locations that you were creating. Next set we're going to take a look at is set number 75249. It is the Resistance Y-Wing Starfighter. It's going to retail for $69.99. And this is the one that's kind of weird to talk about, only because we haven't actually seen yet what the Resistance Y-Wing Starfighter is going to look like in canon and its real version. So it's kind of hard to look at this and really gauge its accuracy, because we don't really know what the actual version is supposed to look like. So I'm really only going to be able to talk about it just in terms of how it looks as a LEGO set, which I think is fine, but at some point it would be nice to actually see what the actual Y-Wing is going to look like so we can really compare it. But first thing I actually want to talk about are the minifigs in this set. The minifigs in this set are so good. They're all new, so I think that's a great thing that's going for this set. Starting over to the left side, we have Poe Dameron in his new Episode 9 clothes, and I think it's actually a really good looking figure. I love the costumes for the main characters in this film. It looks so good. I love it actually quite a lot. This is a figure that I think would really benefit from having dual molded arms, because in all the pictures we've seen, he actually has his sleeves rolled up. So I know this is something that we could talk about with every figure, but I feel like for the main characters at least, Poe could have gotten dual molded arms for this set, because I think that actually go a long way in making his figure just look perfect. I mean, the printing looks great on it, but having those dual molded arms with the sleeves rolled up, I think would make it a perfect minifigure. Next to him is Zori Bliss, another great looking figure with a really cool looking helmet as well. What can I say about it? It looks awesome. It's an awesome looking figure. Over to the right, I mean, this is, I guess, the least unique of the figures. It's a snowtrooper, but he is sporting a cape, and it actually looks really cool to me. I never would have imagined that a snowtrooper or a First Order snowtrooper would look so cool in a cape, but looks really cool. I'm a fan. Next over, we have a teal Astro Droid, which is interesting. I think this is the first new Astro Droid we've gotten in Lego from the sequel films, so it's going to be interesting to see what kind of role that droid plays in the actual film. And then we have Dio, who is just too cute. I love that little Dio build. I like the way these droids have been scaled together. Like, the Astro droids for the most part are probably a little too big, but they've done a good job, I feel, at scaling like the BB-8 as well as the Dio droids to them to make it, you know, they're not all super out of scale. Like, in terms of the droids, they all make sense next to each other, so I actually appreciate that quite a bit. But looking at the actual set, there's actually, I feel, quite a lot of differences between this and the traditional Rebel Y-Wings we've gotten. For one, the color scheme is white and red, which I think actually looks really interesting, and I really can't wait to see how this thing looks on screen. But one of the things that really stuck out to me about the design on this is the use of those like curved tiles and just standard tiles on the top of the ship. I really wonder like what that's gonna look like on film. The caps of the engines look mostly flat with the like light gray plate pieces and the boat plates right on top of them, which gives it, I guess, a little bit of curvature, but traditionally on Y-Wings we've seen domed pieces there. So it looks kind of weird to me, if I'm being completely honest. Like, I like the aesthetic of the domes on the caps of the Y-Wing engines, but once again, that'll have to be something that I see from the actual canon version of the vehicle. Next up is set number 75255, Yoda, and this one's going to retail for $99.99 US. I think this one is easily the most controversial set of the wave. I feel a lot of people have been very divided on this set, and like most of the time it's on the negative side of things. I think that in general this is a good set. In fact, I think it's a really good set. I like what they tried to do by like brick building the robe and ultimately making a statue looking build. Like, this is something we typically just don't see from Lego sets. That being said, I have two main gripes with the set. Firstly, the eyes are just creepy. Like, there's no way around it. I can't give like a good example of what they could have done to make them better, because I've never really built anything like this, but they just look creepy. I've never seen Yoda look so angry. Like, when you look at this model, you're instantly drawn to the eyes, and they're just staring into your soul. So, I mean, I don't know what they could have done to change that, but that has to be probably the most unfavorable thing about the set. And secondly, I feel there are just way too many exposed studs. If you take, for example, the Porg set, I think they did an excellent job on that, and kind of still, you know, doing that statue type of build style, but it's covered up with mostly curved slopes and tiles, so it just feels like it flows a lot more smoothly compared to this, where it's a robe and you would expect it to flow smoothly, and it just doesn't. Like, there's just way too many exposed studs. Like, I would make the argument, if you were doing, like, the techniques should probably be flipped for those. Like, if you're doing like clothes and robes, you would probably want to use curved slopes, and maybe studs would be a better option for something like a Porg where it's feathered, so you would expect for there to be, I don't know, just a lot more texture on the surface of it. But either way, that I feel that really does kind of detract from it. Like, if the build was just more smooth with less exposed studs, I think that would actually go a long way. I actually think Yoda looks a lot better from behind. Like, the back of his head actually looks really cool and nicely detailed compared to the front. If you plan on getting this set, you honestly might be better off just displaying this thing backwards, because the back of his head actually looks really good. Like, I love the usage of those white cheek slopes and those, I still don't even know what to call them, but they basically look like kind of like tiger paw pieces with 3 fingers in white to kind of represent his hair. I think those actually look really, really good. One of the most interesting things about this is that they opted to give him like sand green pieces for his skin tone on the actual model, yet the minifigure is using the olive green skin tone, which I feel like something's got to give here, right? Like, which of those colors does Lego perceive to be correct? My guess would be if they had more pieces in the catalog in olive green, then they would have done it in that color, but I feel that's just a reason to just make those parts for this set, right? Like, if you're gonna have the minifigure be an olive green color, like why not have the big statue, like the more detailed version of it, also be olive green? Like, it just seems weird to me that, like, if you have both of these displaying next to each other, the skin tone on the minifig is a completely different color than the skin tone on the big statue. So I don't know, I think ultimately they probably should have just gone with the olive green, or if you think that sand green's a better color, make the minifigure sand green again. Next up is set number 75256, Kylo Ren shuttle. It's gonna retail for $129.99, and this one has to be my favorite set out of this new wave of Rise of Skywalker sets. I think that Kylo Ren's shuttle is just a beautiful vehicle design in Star Wars, and LEGO has really knocked it out of the park with this one. I'm totally willing to like relinquish all criticism of them for doing a quote-unquote remake of this vehicle, because this vehicle absolutely deserved one. The original was the wrong color. It had a lot of just inaccuracies with the actual build, like with the bottom wing flaps, and also the wing mechanism was incorrect. In fact, it was missing a pretty important function. So this one, I think, makes up for that in all of those ways, and thus is totally necessary, and I'm willing to accept them doing a remake for this build. So first, let's talk about the minifigures. This set has such a cool array of minifigs. For one, you're getting the new Kylo Ren with the red kind of crack designs in his helmet, and I think those just look so freaking cool. You're also getting Governor Price, a new character from episode 9. Minifigure looks pretty good. I can't wait to see what kind of role his character plays in the film. You're also getting the Sith Trooper, which is really the biggest like character design that they're doing a marketing push for in these films. So it's kind of cool that we're gonna get them in the set. The disappointing thing is that there's only one, and it's in one of the bigger sets in this wave. So if we see like a giant army of Sith Troopers, a lot of people are going to be annoyed having to wait for a potential battle pack to get more of those guys. You also get a standard First Order Stormtrooper, which, you know, same thing we've been getting since The Last Jedi, so nothing super special there. But you also get 2 Knights of Ren figures, and they both look so cool. I think their weapons just look really interesting, like the red kind of pieces integrated with the weapons. I don't know, it just really stands out to me. But the character designs in themselves, I feel, look awesome. They're using the new hood piece again in black, which once again, like I said earlier, I love that piece. I'm so glad that that's the new standard for hoods, because I think it, 1, looks better, and 2, is a lot more accurate. In terms of the actual build, I think LEGO did a really good job at just making a good looking Kylo Ren shuttle. The one gripe I would have to say about this set is the wings don't fold out nearly as far as they should. And I understand it's probably that way because of the mechanism. Like, it was actually a pretty sweet mechanism. You basically just twist one of the engines and it makes both wings pop out and in. I almost probably would have preferred for them to just not have included that mechanism and actually have the wings fold out as far as they should, or maybe you've just done a completely different mechanism altogether to incorporate something like that. But when you have it kind of parked like this, I don't know, it leaves a little bit more to be desired. Like, it just makes me feel like, oh, like the wings need to be out further. Like, why have they just stopped right there? A lot of people probably won't find that to be a big deal, but for me, as someone who really just loves the design of the Kylo Ren command shuttle, it would have been nice if the wings were able to fold out just a little bit more, because it would just look more accurate. But all in all, I think this is a gorgeous set. LEGO did such a wonderful job designing it, and I really can't wait to pick this one up. And the final set we're going to take a look at today is the Millennium Falcon of the wave. Oh boy, a lot of people have a lot of things to say about this one, but I'm going to actually defend this set quite a bit. So the set is set number 75257. It's going to retail for $149.99, all to be expected. A lot of people are going to complain about this one. A lot of people did not want to see another Millennium Falcon, but I feel this Falcon specifically has just so many upgrades, so many just design changes that is, one, I think warranted, especially given, you know, this being the last film of the quote-unquote Skywalker saga. I imagine this ship just will be a very important part of the film. And the last system scale Falcon came out 4 years ago, so it feels like we've gotten a lot of Falcons because we got the Kessel Run Falcon and the UCS Falcon in the meantime, but those really aren't meant to represent this. So I think this is totally warranted, and I'm actually not like disappointed at all that we're getting another Falcon, especially with a lot of the design changes that they incorporated into this. The first thing that I noticed is the gaps are gone. They finally closed up the gaps on the top of the Falcon. Took them forever, but they finally did it. Ever since set number 4504, the original like Empire Strikes Back Falcon, they kind of went with the like pizza slice design for the top of it, to where you can open up all of the like panels and reveal the interior of the Falcon. It was great for play, but what that meant was that there were some pretty big gaps between them, and a lot of people found that as a negative on the set. Personally, never bothered me, but a lot of people did see that as a bad thing. So the fact that they were able to close up a lot of those gaps and really consolidate a lot of the panels just will, one, make it easier to get to the inside of it. Like, you're not gonna have to unfold like 10 or 11 of those flap things, and it just looks so much better from the exterior. One of the other things that I'm so happy they're incorporating into this set are those new 4x6 wedge plates. It just makes the perfect angle for the mandibles. Like on the other Falcons that are of this system scale, the mandibles were always just like totally out of scale. Like they were one, way too small and way too narrow. They're still like too small for what they should be on this build, but at least the angles are finally correct, right? The 4x6 wedge plate is actually a pretty new piece, so the fact that they have finally given that to us, and the fact that we're finally seeing those trickle into more Star Wars sets, I feel goes a long way. In fact, I think the only other set we've seen those incorporated in was Von Reg's TIE Fighter from the Resistance set. So getting a bunch of those in light gray in this set just for a mock builder will be really nice. I don't really plan on keeping this Falcon built for very long, considering I have my own big version of it, but this will definitely go a long way just to, I don't know, give people better parts in their collection. A lot of people have pointed out that we have the circular radar dish again. I'm not really too sure what to make of that. I wouldn't really think too deeply into it, other than that they just, you know, it broke off in Last Jedi and they put another one back on. It just happened to be a circle again. One of the other things that I've seen they've been doing a lot with the Star Wars sets is using those ski pieces as like turrets. You can see on the very top turret, the blaster pieces are actually ski pieces, which one, I'm actually very happy about. That's something I've seen a lot of mock builders do, and it's a really good piece for that. So it's kind of cool to see that technique trickle itself into Star Wars sets, and I think it just looks really good. We're gonna take a break from the actual design of the set and talk about these minifigs for a second. So of course, one of the big draws to this set is going to be the Lando Calrissian figure, the old Lando Calrissian figure. And it's a good looking figure, I'll admit. I find it interesting they decided to give him an outfit that so closely resembles what he was wearing in Solo: A Star Wars Story. I don't know, I mean, there might be a reason for that in the film, I don't know. I just kind of find it weird that like that's the design choice they went with. It's not a bad looking outfit, it's just weird that like we kind of knew Lando is wearing this, you know, very specific type of clothing, and then we get the one-off film, and then like we, you know, fast forward many years later and he's back to wearing the clothes he was wearing in that one-off film. Clothes that, mind you, got pretty messed up during the film, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, we get a Chewbacca, standard Chewbacca figure, nothing new there. Then we have a C-3PO figure. Wait, hold on. What the heck? Hold up, this is unacceptable. If you guys will look closely at the C-3PO figure included in the set, you'll notice he has a silver leg. C-3PO in the sequels does not have a silver leg. C-3PO has not had that silver leg since the original trilogy. This is so just, what? I mean, maybe they just have a bunch of this C-3PO in some warehouse somewhere and they just decided to throw it into the set to get rid of some of them. But come on, like, that's the wrong figure. I don't know if I'm just being like nitpicky here, but that actually really disappoints me. This would have been a really great opportunity to give us a Last Jedi / Rise of Skywalker C-3PO that just has standard legs without the silver print on them, but they just threw like an original trilogy C-3PO into this set. I don't really want to bog this video down by talking too much about C-3PO's leg, but that's actually really disappointing to me. They really shouldn't at this point be missing out on details like that. Aside from that, I think the Finn figure looks incredible. Like, his torso is awesome, the leg piece is awesome. It looks like he's sporting the same head like print from The Last Jedi, and he has a new hairpiece as well. So this all around good looking figure for Finn. I actually really like that Finn figure quite a bit. We have another figure who is a weird looking alien named Bulio. I literally have no idea what he's gonna do in the film or what his role is in the film, but he's there. We're also getting R2-D2, which is kind of cool. It's the first R2 we've gotten in the sequel, so that's a cool thing to have, I guess. And then we're getting another Dio figure. So we got a full array of droids here, but one of them is incorrect, so I'm still pretty grumpy about that. If we look at the back of the box, we just get a really good view of the back side of the Falcon, and I really love what they've done with the hyperdrive section. It's totally different. They finally, I feel like, made an effort to incorporate the like flap designs on the back of the Falcon. Like previously, they tried it, but it didn't look nearly as good as it should. But this is actually, I feel, a really good looking design, and that flex tubing, I think, actually helps quite a bit to make it look more rounded back there. So I think the Falcon just looks good. Like, it's just a really good looking Falcon. I think it by far is the best looking Falcon that we've ever gotten at system scale. And I'll actually be pretty excited to build this thing and just get to, I don't know, appreciate all the new things they've done with it. This is a step in the right direction for these system scale Falcons that we seem to get so often. If we look at the interior, it's really what we would come to expect. We got the couch room, we got the couch room with the Dejaric table on the top left corner. Bottom left-hand corner, we have what's basically supposed to be the room where like Luke gets his hand cut off and they kind of sit him in there in Empire. We also have like a little hatch at the very back, which I think is kind of interesting. It'll be cool to see if that actually plays a role in the film. Other than that, there's like kind of like a break room sort of section over to the bottom right corner, which I want to assume probably isn't supposed to be there. They just decided to throw that over there because that's really, in the actual Falcon, it's a cargo room that kind of sits over there. But interior looks pretty good. I always like these Falcons that they do because you just have so much room to put your characters on the inside and have all of them doing different things. But that's going to finish up the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed listening to this almost pre-review of these sets that have been newly revealed. I, for one, am actually pretty happy with this wave. I think there are a lot of things to get excited about. The new Kylo shuttle looks awesome. The Pasaana speeder chase, I think, is going to be an interesting sequence in the film, and by extension, is going to be a cool set to have. And I'm also just really excited to get the new versions of the main characters from Episode 9. Of course, let me know in the comment section, how do you guys feel about these sets? Do you plan on picking up any of them on Force Friday? Which ones are you going to pick up? Which ones do you not want to pick up? And I'd love to know why. Last thing I'll say is I still think it's kind of weird that Jedi Fallen Order has been excluded from the LEGO line of sets from Triple Force Friday. Like, for LEGO, it's basically just double Force Friday. But I'm hoping sometime down the line we'll get some sort of set, at least with the main character from the game, so we can have just a well-rounded group of figures from these new projects that are coming out in Star Wars. We got Ein Versio, so why not get Cal from Jedi Fallen Order? If you guys like what I do, go ahead and support the video by hitting the like button, support the channel by smashing that subscribe button, and I'll be back again very soon.